time I watch that bump, I don't care what nobody say, B. My shit is cold. My shit is cold, nigga.
Nah,
Hey,
it is
man.
fire.
But yeah, good people, great people, guys, people. How y'all doing? Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for joining me for another episode of my podcast, aptly named The Antidote. Y'all know me already, man. My name is Professor Odie. I am here with my brother Chukwuemeka Osuagu. But y'all call him BJ, man. But I am probably not going to do his introduction justice because how it is that I introduce people is usually based upon what it is that they send me in the response to the form to be on my podcast, right? So how he responded is that he's a community organizer and he has, experience in civic engagement and all these other nice things that sound fantastic on a resume. But brother, I want you to introduce yourself and I want you to tell the people who it is that you are, what it is that you do, and how it is that you do it.
I'm gonna try my best. What's up, everybody? My name is Chukwuemeka Oswagu. Everyone calls me BJ, though. Y'all can call me BJ. I'm at BJ Oswagu on all my socials. And I'm a community guy. I've been working in the community since I was 19 years old, doing youth development, community organizing, community engagement, financial literacy. I just recently today accepted a job to be the executive director at an organization that's focusing on community health and food insecurity. So that's just really what I've been doing. I've worked in the community, like I mentioned. I've worked in the government space. I've worked for elected officials. I studied political science and sociology undergrad, working on a law degree starting this fall. So just been doing a lot of stuff for the people. That's really what my life is about. I'm dedicated to giving back to people and giving voices to people that historically haven't had voices.
Most definitely, most definitely. I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that. So when you say working for government people, and y'all got to excuse me, man. I'm trying to make sure that my guard on my microphone stays on my microphone and it don't fall off because that'll be a lot of what am I trying to say? That'll be a lot of audio insecurity that I'm not trying to deal with at any moment in time. But brother, you were saying that you have done a lot of work for the people, right? And you have done a lot of work with the people. Can you describe some of the work that you've done and what it is that you've learned?
Yeah, so I guess I start at the beginning. The first real community work that I did was I ran a program for 12 to 15-year-old boys in the city of Dorchester, or the neighborhood of Dorchester in the city of Boston, and just teaching them about civic engagement and how to be a community steward. And you know what it's like to be 12 to 15-year-old black boy in the city is not easy. So just that idea of being able to like mentor them and walk with them through some of the stuff that they was going through really made me fall in love with the idea of just dedicating my life towards working with people. So I did that for a few summers while I was in college working on my degree. And then after, I started working with an organization called the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. And they work with families and loved ones that have lost their loved ones to gun violence and homicide throughout the country, in different cities throughout the country. It's a great organization started by my former boss and honestly a friend, I would say at this point, Chaplain Clementina Sherry. She lost her son to gun violence in the 80s, and she started that organization. So I did work there for about a year and a half, and then I was tapped to work for a newly elected government official, the District 4 City Councilor, Brian Worrell. And then after my time, I spent about 8 months there. I loved the work I was doing. I ended up transitioning offices to the District 6 office, where I met my most current boss. Her name was Kendra Lara. She was a District 6 city councilor at the time, and she really taught me a lot about how to not only say you're for the community, but actively fight for your community every day and what you're doing. She's really dope. And that led me to my next position that I just accepted today, to be that executive director for a new organization. So that the work has been constant. It's been streamlined. It's been going forever. And I'm just excited to continue to do what I'm doing and help bring that information and help bring that success to the community that I love.
Most definitely, most definitely, most definitely. And I think that conversations around community organizing and conversations around implementing solutions are extremely important. The reason being is because a lot of the activism that we see and a lot of the engagement that we see, especially within, you know, in the socio-political, in the and the social economic climate that we find ourselves in, a lot of it is performative, right? A lot of us say that the things that we do or how it is that we engage, that it seems as if though everybody is pointing the finger to everybody else and saying you're being performative, right? You are being identified as somebody who is not really down for the cause. You're being identified like people getting called coons left and right. It's crazy. It's wild out here, right? Sometimes I think to myself, you know, we we don't necessarily know what it means to be down for the cause, or we don't have a firm definition of what it means to help your community or be involved in community. Because, you know, similar to you, I've been engaged in community work through what am I trying to say, volunteering, or through other organizations since I was about 13, 14, right? I no longer do community work in the same way, but my job and what it is that I do as a therapist is still very linked to the community. I work with an all Black mental health and wellness private practice in the city of Pennsylvania, I mean, the city of Philadelphia, and I mainly work with people of color, right? I also mainly work with, well, I wouldn't say mainly now, but beforehand, a lot of my population was women. It was mostly women. It was women and families. And then as you know, my reach and my understanding grew, it expanded into Black men, right? And it became a space where I was able to help Black people, and I was able to help people of color in such a way where it was impactful. It was, you know, down to earth, and it was important in solving particular problems within the community in a way that was not performative, right?
Yeah, I mean the idea of, you know, performative activism, performative community work, I honestly think that's not even the biggest plight on the work that we're doing. I think
Mm.
like the performative nature of some people, like if you want to show up somewhere and get a photo op or get some likes or get some views, that's fine. I think that there's even space where that's beneficial if you're bringing a light to an organization or to a group that is doing the work that hasn't had that exposure. There are plenty of opportunities for photo ops or whatever the case may be, but I honestly think the biggest hindrance and the biggest pullback in the community work that we do is just a lack of accurate education on how most effective to do this work.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of what I'm running into most now. Like when a lot of organizations or individuals, you know, you can see I have a picture of Fred Hampton up on my wall. Like they don't understand that idea of like socialized community work. I don't personally find it beneficial if you're going into, you know, if you're going into communities, Black communities, majority Black communities, and you're teaching them about, you know, this is like become a landlord. I don't find that beneficial towards our community, because that whole structure of capitalism is very contradictory towards ourselves as Black people. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So like that type of work, that's kind of what I've been trying to dismantle in the work that I'm doing, and trying to push the needle a little bit towards more of an idea of community living, community working, community everything, where we kind
Mhm.
of take that idea of profit out of the things that people need in their everyday lives: housing, food, uh, transportation, these things that are so essential to life, you know, taking that profit margin out of them. So that's honestly, I think, the biggest drawback when it comes to doing community work.
Most definitely. So I understand where it is that you're coming from, right? The drawbacks in doing community work as it relates to identifying how to appropriately engage in community work, what that appropriate engagement looks like, and how it is that people can be aligned in ways. So in our industry, in the therapy and the helping professions, we call it cultural competence, right? How people can show up in in ways that are not only just culturally competent, but for the sake of liberation, right? Because when we talk about liberation, when we talk about all of these different, people will call them buzzwords, but when we talk about all of these different ideas, right? I find it very intriguing that there are two things I feel that are going on in the Black community a lot, and one of them is arguments over who's doing it right. Right. So I really want to talk about that a little bit right at this moment in time, because I feel like doing it right implies that there is a centralized and a prioritized way of approaching uh, the issues in the Black community. Right. I feel like that implies that the way in which one of us do it is the way that all of us have to do it. And to be quite honest, I don't necessarily agree with that. Right. I don't believe that the centralization of the execution of a quote unquote Black plan is the most effective way to go about community-based liberation, or even community-based implementation or community-based growth. And the reason why I say that is because historically, that's the way that it's been intercepted, that's the way that it's been interrupted, and that's the way that it's been diminished to a point where or diluted to a point where the actual or the overall goal is not achieved. Brother, what are your thoughts on
My thoughts is like, I agree with you when you say there's no centralized plan, or there shouldn't be a centralized plan. But the idea is, if there is a good plan, it's a plan that doesn't only affect or it doesn't only affect or aid just Black people. If we have a good plan, it's going to be a plan that can help all people on the spectrum, whether it be the poor people, white people, Mexican people, or Hispanic people, whatever the case may be. Like, if Black people are able to implement a plan that is the best for us, it's going to be beneficial for other people regardless. It's not saying that the main focus should be, oh, this is going to be for everybody. But the reality is, where Black people sit in the social hierarchy, any plan that we come up with that's going to aid us is going to aid the people behind us, people that are right in front of us, whatever the case may be, people that are closer in proximity to whiteness. And that idea, I know we had kind of thrown around the idea of talking about financial literacy, and it's
that?
like that idea of financial literacy, like, like, I can teach you how to be financially literate in this current system. That's not that hard of a task. But the reality is, a lot of the people that are coming from our community are not going to come with the advantages that they would need to be successful in this system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have Black people that is growing up, getting their first credit cards, finding out they had a car put in their name when they was 2 years old. I can't teach you out of that. You know what I mean? You can only
Mm-hmm.
do so much education to a point where it's like you've started 10 paces back behind other people. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I can teach you how to get your credit up. I can teach you how to save money. I can teach you how to budget. But the reality is, you're still going to get skipped over that job because you're Black, even though you're qualified, or you're still going to get underpaid because you're a Black woman. And you're still going to get underpaid because you're a Black woman compared to your white male counterpart. That stuff doesn't stop. So the real problem in my eyes, the real thing that needs to be addressed is that idea of being able to attack the problems at their source, not just not just coming up with band-aids to put over the problems that people are facing day to day. But the reality is, you need two groups of people. You need people to work on that day-to-day stuff, but you also need people to work on the long-term vision and figuring out, how are we going to really address these things that after I die, the next generation is still going to be dealing with this stuff even worse.
Most definitely, most definitely. So I I'm hearing a couple of things. The first thing that I'm hearing is the need for strategy, right? It is the need for understanding how to do what, right? I'm also hearing the need for implementation, right? Or the need for disruption more so than implementation, right? So you're saying not putting band-aids on things, but attacking them at their root or attacking them at their core. What does that look like?
I'll give you an example. So me me and the good professor over here, we met on TikTok. For those that don't know, we met on TikTok. That's how this relationship started. Um, and a conversation I had on TikTok one time was just a prompt that had been floated, and I was like, if I was president, the first thing I would do would be go in and erase everybody's student loan debt, or any federal debt that anybody has. I would go and erase that. And someone that shares the same political ideology and political worldview as me had said, why would you do that instead of just giving people $10,000 or $20,000? And I'm like, why? And my thought process is, why would I give someone $20,000 so that they could either, one, put that back into this economic cycle where you're making somebody else rich, or two, pay off the debt that they already had. So you're just giving the money back to the government anyways. So it's like that. It's that idea. So I tell that story because it's like the idea of attacking that root cause, and how to attack that root cause is by effective collection and action. So it's like praxis versus practice. It's reading so that you can gain the information, and then actually putting it into putting it into the world and actually doing these things. And it's like you had mentioned, the organization is about the education. Once you educate people on what you feel like the right thing is, people are going to be able to spread that education, and then people are going to be able to start living in a way that is more conducive towards the upliftment of the Black community. I mean, if you look at housing, for example, we live in a society that has privatized housing. Within a society that housing is a commodity, housing is something that can make you rich. You know what I mean? But housing is also something that everybody needs. Nobody in a country where there's more vacant homes than there are homeless people, everyone should have a place to live. You know what I mean? So it's that idea of, once you educate these people, then how do you get people into these homes? Well, there are plenty of things that exist now, even in a capitalist society, like community land trusts, and like ideas where people, like the places where they have actually taken away that that influence of gaining monetary value off of housing. They've stripped that away from the idea of housing. And it's not like they're giving out housing for free, but it's that idea of you pay into a collective pot, and that collective pot continues to keep the upkeep of the area that you inhabit, and you're not paying a flat rate. You're paying what you can pay. You know what I mean? And that idea, that's like how you kind of start to strip down the surrounding walls of living in a capitalist society that prioritizes the profit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when I think about the system of capitalism, right, and the system of economics, the question that I usually, I don't want to say too much at one time, because I want to parse this out a little bit, right? Because when we talk about this idea of Black liberation, or when we talk about this idea of class liberation, right? Because the ideas that we're discussing right at this moment in time are more class-based than race-based, right? Because when we talk about the intersection of race and class, we know that Black people tend to end up at the bottom of any class that they are a part of, simply because white supremacy exists on the myth of Black inferiority. Like, we understand these particular intersections and how it is that they work, right? But I would be remiss if I did not say that, as somebody who is Black but also believes in Black economic freedom, the idea of cutting down the tree of capitalism, the first thing that pops in my mind is, have we really thought about what happens when this tree falls? Right? Like, what comes after that? Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I have conversations with a number of Black people who are anti-capitalist, and it's like, I try to figure out whether or not I'm anti-capitalist myself, or am I anti the way that capitalism has been moving in this country, right? Or the way that it is that the free market operates within this particular country. Because for me, as a Black person, I have read The Green Book by Muammar Gaddafi, and the way that it is that he identified his concept of socialism was market socialism. So in other words, everybody gets their basic needs met. You can work and you can continue to produce more than what it is that you need in order to provide for your family. And if the market wants to purchase that at a fair price, they can, so that you can go and get whatever it is that you want to get in terms of trinkets, X, Y, Z, and A, B, and C. I feel like that's a fair solution for something that looks like a economic space where people can not only just benefit, but gain if they so choose, right? So when we are talking about the economics of Black liberation, right? What that looks like, or the economics of class liberation, right? What that looks like, how that functions and how that operates. What have been some of your largest obstacles in convincing people or educating people about the ideologies that you are talking about, right?
Well, that's like the main thing that you just said, like the start of it. People don't know what it looks like to not live in a capitalist society.
Mhm.
People don't know what it looks like to not have this quote unquote free market, or to not have, capitalism in and around everything that they do every day of their lives. And the reality of it is that it doesn't have to be a situation where you chop the tree down at the bottom and everything falls and you got to now plant a new tree. There's some systemic things that we can do to dismantle the United States capitalism has kind of moved more into an imperialistic. It's moved into imperialism. It's not really capitalism as it was written originally. You
Mhm.
know, and the reason why I'm so staunchly anti-capitalist is because even if you're not looking at capitalism in this country specifically, the ideology surrounding capitalism is, in order for someone to have a lot, someone has to have nothing. In this country, just so happens to be black people, people of color as a whole. They're usually the people that are on the bottom of this totem pole that exists through capitalism.
Mhm.
Uh, and like you had mentioned through the book you read by Muammar Gaddafi, that idea of market socialism is a possibility. That idea of you are able to produce more than what your baseline needs are needing to be met, then you can access more in the market, which is fine. But the problem is, if you are still having a situation where there's this quote unquote open market, then there's still going to be inequalities that surface even in that market socialism. The problem is there's no real open market. The people with the most funds have control of the market. They don't just have control of the economic market, they have control of our government. They have control over everything. Everything that we do in our life can be decided by the people that have the funds to do so. That's just the reality of the system we live in. But
Mhm.
but the problems that I run into when I have these conversations with people, like I just mentioned at the beginning, is that people don't understand what it looks like, or they don't know what it looks like, and they're afraid of what the potential outcome can be. It's either that, or they truly believe that if they work hard enough, they will get themselves out of any financial struggle that they're in,
Mhm.
which is a fallacy. It's a lie. It's a lie that you've been told. That idea
Mhm.
that you can just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and move into uh, a new socioeconomic stand, or a new economic standing. You can move from lower class to middle class and middle class to upper class. It's a lie. It's not true. You can't just work hard enough and move into a different class of living. The reality is the classes are not as different as you would think. People that make $60,000 a year are basically the same as people who make $160,000 a year. Yes, that's a large difference in our heads, but the reality is they're living basically the same lives. They're still living paycheck to paycheck. That's just the life. That's what it means to live in America today. I was actually watching a lecture by Roy Casagrande. He's a professor out of the University of Texas. Um, Really smart dude. If you haven't watched him on YouTube, I recommend him. I think he's a really good political scientist. But he was talking about how the most boisterous time, or the most quick growing economic time in U.S. history was from 1953 to 1968. Don't quote me on those dates, but it's around that time period. It's after World War II. That was a time where you can actually work a regular job 40 hours a week and elevate your economic status, which
Mhm.
is the only time in US history where you've been able to do that. But where you're able to actually work a job 40 hours a week and elevate your economic status. There was a 6 month waiting list for people with just high school degrees to get meatpacking jobs because they were paying so well. Meatpacking jobs were paying so well. You could get a meatpacking job straight out of high school and buy a house and have a family and not worry about your bills. That was the only time in American history where that quote unquote American dream existed. That idea of or economic mobility.
Mhm.
And since then, it has not existed. It's a lie that we've been being fed so that we can work as hard as possible and kill ourselves. Essentially, our health decline, everyone's health is declining. Mental health, physical health. We're not making nearly as much as we should be. We're working twice as much as we should be. All because we're chasing that idea that if I work hard enough, I'll be able to reach some sort of stability, financial stability in my life. It's not true. That's a lie.
Mhm.
And once, And that's really the biggest thing that I face. It's one of the two biggest things that I face when I have these conversations. People believe like, hey, if I work hard enough, I'll be good. If I get this job, I'm gonna be good. If I make six figures, I'm gonna be good. No, you're not. I want you to know there's people that make six figures that can't figure out how they're gonna pay their rent next month. That's the country we live in.
But couldn't that be attributed to personal choices? Right? Couldn't that not be attributed to things such as lifestyle creep, things such as, because as an individual who, once again, this is the reason why I say I don't always know whether or not I'm anti-capitalist. The reason being is because I wouldn't say that I'm pro-capitalism either. Like, I'm somewhat in the middle, because for me as an individual, I recognize that capitalism is it literally exists to manipulate and exploit resources from individuals who are a part of lower classes. I understand that, and I understand that fully. And at the same time, and of the same token, we live in a global economy that does not allow for the existence of other economic systems outside of capitalism to exist in such a way where they are not usurped. So is it
But
not?
that's set up by us though. That's our own. That's the U.S.'s fault. Every other socialist, not even socialist, because I believe like Norway is socialist. But like
Mhm,
if you're looking at communism, especially during the Cold War, every other communist state that ever arose was usurped, or was, there was some sort of coup that happened that was funded by the United States of America, or
mhm,
they weren't given the chance to actually see, so that we can actually see what are the benefits and what are the drawbacks of this. Because you have countries that are facing, Cuba was facing like a 50, 60, 70-year sanctions from the United States, a complete freeze out from the global economy,
mhm,
from the majority of countries in the world. And that's the example that people want to use to say communism or socialism doesn't work. But Cuba has some of the highest literacy rates in the world,
mhm,
producing doctors on doctors on doctors, people voluntarily deciding to go to med school in Cuba because their education systems are good. Like, there are positives to these systems. There are positives to raising the standard of living for people
mhm,
that you routinely come in education and health usually.
mhm.
But that idea of like, I'm forgetting what you had mentioned. Oh, personal choice. I understand that argument, and that's an argument I probably would have had maybe a couple years ago, but I no longer have that argument, because why should I be policing, or why should I police what someone does with their money? Should I get on someone because they wanted to go out to dinner with their friends, or they wanted to take a vacation? These are all things we should be. These are all things that we should be promoting, not
Right.
things that were like, oh, you don't make enough money, so you shouldn't take a break. No, you should have the ability to take a break, even if you make $30,000 a year. If you're working 40 hours a week and you make $30,000 a year, I still want you to go on vacation.
Which I understand, and I disagree with that whole conceptualization that if you poor, like you, like, oh, so because you broke, you shouldn't be able to go out to eat. Fuck that bullshit. What I'm
What?
saying is, yeah, that shit is foolish. But what I'm saying is that, and I guess I need to continue to do. I guess I need to continue to do my own research and my own education, because the way that it is that I see capitalism, socialism, these different types of economic systems, I see them through a political lens and not how it is that they function economically, right? So, for example, in the space of socialism, the question I'm asking is, how does one continue to generate an income that does not place them in different classes so that they can be able to do what it is that they want to do?
Can you rephrase the question? I
So
was
I'll
a little.
rephrase the question, right?
Yeah.
And this is the reason why I appreciated Muammar Gaddafi's market socialism, because my understanding of socialism is that things that meet the basic needs of human function are free, right? Anything that generates income or anything that generates profit is owned by the people, right?
Okay.
And the spaces that are managed and the things that are managed within these spaces are also managed by the people, right?
Hmm.
So then, how does one, or how is one able to then afford or engage in things that will be perceived as luxuries if they are not able or if everything is owned by the people. So, in other words, you said that in a space of free market, right? There is no such thing as a free market because the person who has the most money owns that free market. But if that free market is owned by the people and the people are making a decision to increase, or the people are making a decision to continue to work so that this free market continues to grow, the question then once again becomes, how does one exist in this system where they are able to quote unquote afford what would be perceived in capitalism as a luxury?
Yeah. The answer, I think, and I'm not 100% sure. This is not a fact that I'm saying, but in my head, the way that I conceptualize it is we change the terminology of what we consider to be and not to be a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
If we stop considering things luxuries and start introducing them in our everyday lives as things that we can enjoy at our leisure, then they're no longer considered luxuries, right? If it's like, for example, if you're like, if the example of this is like buying a sports car, let's say, right? So if you're in a socialist community, can you go buy a sports car? I mean, yes, why not? Like you said, if in that market socialism aspect, like if you have the additional income to go buy a social sports car, you can go do that. But then you're also saying that on the flip side of that, isn't that sports car company making additional income, which is fine. I think additional income is fine. So the idea of market socialism works, but there needs to be strong stipulations on how much. There has to be ceilings on how much these private entities can make or
Mm-hmm.
keep. There has to be ceilings. There has to be caps. Whenever you go over a certain amount, that overflow, because someone had to make that sports car. That
Yep.
overflow has to go back to the people that produced that product. The idea of socialism in our economy is more of an idea of owning the power of production. So whatever you produce, you're being directly reimbursed for the production that you've made to society as a whole.
Mhm.
So I think it's a nuanced system that can work, but like I said, there has to be caps on that, because if you just allow the quote unquote free market, then you have people that are going to exploit other people.
So here's the reason why I say that I'm kind of in the middle with being between pro and anti-capitalist. Well, I'll never be pro-capitalist. Neutral capitalism.
Neutral capitalism and
Neutral capitalism and anti-capitalism. Like, because being in my mind, being pro-capitalist means that you are all right with slavery. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that, my boy. I don't know about that one. Right. But here's the reason why I'm neutral capitalism. My argument for people who are pro-capitalism, my argument has always been the people who exist in the 10% and the 1% are not capitalists. They're socialists. They're exploitative socialists, but they're socialists nonetheless. Why? Because most of them control the means of production. They what they do not do is that they do not put the profit of the means of production back into the people. They keep the profit.
yeah,
That's what makes them capitalists, right? But the behaviors of placing most of that money back into their own internal communities, schools, and into building their own structures, that's socialist. That is at its core. Ideologically, it is socialism, because what you are doing is you are constructing a reality, or you are constructing a space where you are securing the future, the present, and continuing to uplift and preserve the past that this particular set of people are coming from, or this particular class of people are coming from. I believe that that's socialism. It's socialism practiced in such a way where I don't. One of the rules of this social class is that I should not have to give these poor people more. Y'all should just work harder. When the reality of the situation is none of y'all had to work that hard to get what it is that you believe, that exploitation is the same thing as working hard, and it's not.
I guess in a workaround way, I guess you could say that is socialism because they own their own means of production. except their means of production are people. Sounds kind of evil, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's where I stop. That's exactly where I stop fucking with capitalism. Like right there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, damn. Because in my mind, it's like, yo, in capitalism, what we have is a system where if you are in a space where you have the ability to navigate that space with the resources that you have, capitalism, as much as it takes away, it gives you crumbs of what it is that it takes. You dig what I'm saying? Like, for example, taxation. You're being taxed at multiple different levels of things, right? And in some states, they take like 30-40% of your paycheck before it hit your shit. Like that's
I live in Massachusetts. We got some of the highest taxes. I live in Boston.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I don't hate taxes though.
They take as much as, hey, don't say that on here, bro.
No, I don't. So the idea of taxes is not like, the problem is what our taxes are being spent on. That's my issue. It's not so much that I'm being taxed. I've been blessed to have the education I have and to make the money that I've made. If the government wants to take some of that to give to someone else who hasn't had that opportunity, I'm fine with that. That on its face is fine. The problem is these taxes are being taken and spent on genocides and on war and on like a bunch of crazy things that I don't align with. So it's like that in and of itself is an issue. But that idea of being like, the thing is, nobody gets to that talking point. People will just be like, I hate taxes. And I'm like, but why? And then then you hear about a class and stuff. Yeah, I don't want to pay for that welfare person, blah blah blah. And I'm just like,
well, I don't want to pay for genocide. Like, that's cracking, my boy.
I'm like, you failed, but correctly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't, like, fine, you don't want to pay taxes, but you shouldn't want to pay taxes because of what they're being spent on, not because your money is potentially going to someone who needs food stamps like that. Because we live, and the only reason that these social programs even exist in the first place is because we live in a place that prioritizes the profit of food, basic food, over people. We throw, how many billions of tons of food do we throw away a year that people are going hungry? That's the problem. Is if we didn't have, if there was a production problem, I would understand. If there was like, oh, we're not producing enough food to feed everybody, okay, I'm saying people should go hungry at that point, but it's like, then we need to find solutions to help to produce more food so that people can eat. The reality is we're throwing away 60% of the food that we produce.
Yes, we are.
So it's like, why should anybody ever go hungry? Like, it doesn't make sense. And the reality is, even if these businesses, the thing is, even if these businesses were giving that food away in the first place, you're already throwing it away. You know what I mean? And there are a bunch of like political things surrounding this. Like, there are tax implications for, like, you can get a loss for food that you throw away, whatever the case may be. Like, there are tax and government stuff that goes into restaurants, grocery stores, throwing food away and whatever. But it's like the government can also incentivize these organizations, give businesses tax credit if they are donating their leftover overproduction food to food shelters and food pantries. You know, why hasn't the government done that? So, there's a lot that can be said to that.
Most definitely. I think that a lot of the conversations that we are having are long-term solutions, right? That do not appeal to the everyday, because whenever I start having conversations like this, it then dawns on me that I'm having this conversation from a place of privilege.
100%.
Right? I'm having this conversation from a place of educational privilege. I'm having this conversation from a place of, in a lot of ways, financial privilege, right? I'm having this conversation from a place of resource privilege, right? Because what I'll say is, I understand, for me, it's not financial literacy. Financial literacy for Black people is a game of resource management and allocation, right? Do you know what your cash and cash like resources are? Do you know where in your neighborhood you can go to get this assistance? Do you understand how it is to utilize your ecology or utilize what it is that you have to your disposal in order to get where it is that you need to go?
Do
So
you have a budget? I think, like,
hold on, wait. Hold on, because I want let me cook real quick because I want to get to my question,
oh,
right?
okay.
Because I feel like the question that I'm about to ask is relevant to the answer that you were about to give, and the question is simply, what are some what are some simple and implementable solutions for people who may not have the level of education that we have, or may not have the level of access that we have? You dig what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, like our in the cloud conversation, or our future long term thoughts, ideologies, whatever. It's a great conversation to have, on a one-to-one basis, but actual practical things that people need that are living in the system that we live in today. I got you.
Mm.
You need a budget. I don't care how much money you think you make or how much money you don't think you make. I don't care if you making it takes you two checks to pay your rent or it takes you one check to pay your rent. I don't care if it takes half a check. I don't matter. You need a budget. You need to know how much money is coming into your house, into your pocket every month, and you need to know how much money is going out every month. You need to track your essentials. You need to track your rent. You need to track your food on average, your car note, your insurance, your car insurance. These are things that you need to track every month. Once you do that, once you figure out how much money is coming in, how much money I have to spend every month, if those numbers, if you're not making double what you have to spend every month, you've made a mistake. Your car is too expensive. Your apartment's too expensive. You need a roommate. You're spending too much on groceries. You're shopping at the wrong place. You've made a mistake. You need to have a budget first. Two, once you know how much money is coming in, how much money is coming out, what are your short term, medium term, long term financial goals? Do you want to buy a car? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to do you want to buy a new pair of sneakers even? Then you can start going, okay, so I have to pay this every month. I make this every month. All right, I like to go out. I like to hang out with my friends. That's fine. I love that for you. You want to go hang? You go out every weekend. How much am I spending every week on an average? Between 50 and $100. That's $400 a month. Excuse me. At the high end, that's potentially $400 a month. Budget that. That's something that now that's an expense that you're expecting every month. Around $400, going out, drinking, getting food with friends, whatever. And then you're like, okay, I want to start saving for a house. So now you have your going out fund, your car, your insurance, your rent, whatever, school, student loans, whatever. How much do I have left? The reality is, a lot of people don't even make it this far because they don't have anything left anymore after that. But if you still have something left, 100, not 100, 70% of that should just go into savings. Whatever you have left, just put it in your savings. Don't touch it. Put it in a rainy day fund. You should have at least 6 months salary in your savings. Like, that is not even that. When you think about that, that's not even that much. Like, because the reality is, if you get laid off, especially in this job market right now, you might go without a job for 3 or 4 months. Like, I had to transition out of my last position. January 1st was my last day. January 1st, 2024 was my last day. I just accepted a position today. It's been 3 months. I haven't worked since January. It's March 13th today. So the reason why I was able to not work for 3 months is because I planned accordingly, knowing I was gonna have to find a new position in January. But even before that, just saved a rainy day fund in case I wasn't working, or in case I got sick, or in case a loved one got sick. Like, these are things that you have to start planning for. Once you get that savings up, then you can start like saving towards, your house or whatever. I'm not the person that's going to advocate for you to not have fun. I think however you can budget fun in, do it, because you deserve it. You work hard. You deserve a break. You deserve release. You deserve relaxation. So budget that in. But you need to know, like I said, you need to know how much money you're spending every month. If you buy a coffee every day, budget that. Budget the $4 that you spend every day on a cup of coffee if you buy a cup of coffee every day. I would budget my cup of coffee. The thing is, I drink coffee 3 times a week, so I would budget the $12 that I would spend a week in coffee. 12 times 4, it's 48. So $48 a month I budgeted for coffee. You know what I mean? Like these, getting down to that, like budgeting is such an important piece. And then once you do this for a little while, you're gonna start to accumulate money. Then you can start investing. Like if you want to talk about long-term financial success, I started investing my senior year of college when COVID hit. I was like, COVID hit, I'm not driving anywhere. I sold my car. I moved back home. I graduated college in May of 2020. So we were on lockdown. I moved back home. I knew I wasn't going to be driving anywhere. I sold my car. I sold my 2002 Toyota Camry, silver, for $1,000. Had an oil leak. The guy knew. I sold it for $1,000. I invested that money. I put it straight into investments. I ended up, all right, I don't like advocating for investing because capitalism is evil, but I bought Tesla stock at 100 and I bought Tesla stock at $170. Since then, that same one stock I bought has gone through multiple splits and is now worth like $5,000, $4,000. I bought Ethereum at $180 or $220 or whatever. Ethereum is worth $4,000 today. You know, so like just those two moves alone, I've made an excess of almost $10,000. I spent a little bit of that. I bought a new car. I went on a vacation. You know, I spent a little bit of that, but I still have my investments. That's something that I never touch. Even in the moments where I was not working, I'm not touching my investments. Like that's the type of level you can get to where you kind of always have your little, you know, rainy day fund. I have 3 rainy day funds. I have a regular savings, I have a rainy day, I have my investments, my credit cards. So I have good credit. I have an 812 credit score. Building up my credit, I got the nice credit cards. I got the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the American Express Platinum. I have almost 200,000 points on each. The good thing about having credit card points, and these are 200,000 points because they give you these sign up bonuses. When you sign up, you spend a certain amount, you get a bonus. These are more rainy day funds I have because those points are equivalent to money. If I took 200,000 Chase points out of my Chase account, that's $2,000. Now, $2,000 is not going to fix everything, but if I'm really in a pinch, $2,000 is going to really save my behind. You know what I mean? And these are all like stop loss precautionary measures that I've put in my life where if money goes south, I'm good. I'm not going to be happy spending it, but I'm good. And the reality is the reason why I'm even like this is because I grew up in a household that wasn't very I grew up with parents that were immigrants. They're not from this country, so they weren't as financially savvy as I am because I grew up here. You know what I mean? But growing up in that kind of financial instability made me not want to have any financial instability because I understand what it's like for lights to be turned off or for water to not be working. You know, like that stuff's not fun. And I don't want that for myself or my future family. So it's all like when you do this financial literacy stuff, it's not only just for you, it's for whoever you're going to be inviting into your life for the rest of your life in the future.
Most definitely, most definitely, most definitely. Now, I will say, if my audience was a little bit bigger on YouTube, I would say they finna chew your ass up in the comments because you talked all this thing about capitalism and he's like, yeah, but capitalism. It's like,
no, yeah, you know, but
it's cool though because here's my thing. When I start talking to folks about, and this is the reason why I say for a particular, so a little bit of background. When I was getting my master's in community psychology with a focus in Afrocentric theory, my the what is it called? The grant that paid for some of my expenses during grad school was called the Minority Recruitment and Support Grant. Right? In that grant, it was my job to disseminate financial literacy information to lower income, like literally lower income to poverty level families. This is the reason why, once again, the conversation around financial literacy, at some point in time, we have to be aware of class, and it becomes a conversation. It goes from money into resource allocation and management, right? Because what you said was, At this point, a lot of people don't have anything left over, right? It does not mean that you throw a budget out of the window, right? It doesn't mean that you stop budgeting. It means that you utilize this, excuse me, you utilize your budget to create a guide in order to understand where it is that you need to accumulate resources in order to get through the rest of the month, right? So
or
let's say
cut back or cut back in certain places if
or
you're
cut
at
back in certain
or cut
places.
back in certain places. But like, yeah, please,
So
food
for
pantries,
example,
yeah,
so like you were saying, food pantries, EBT, SNAP benefits, looking at where it is in your community, people potentially are giving away either free books,
free
free
hygiene equipment,
free
free
hygiene equipment.
free and reduced lunch for your kids. Like, if you are, and this is the one thing about the Black community that is tough, is that a lot of people will be qualified for some of these programs and be too proud to take the programs.
Yep.
Don't be too proud to take free and reduced lunch. Don't be too proud to take EBT. Don't be too proud to go on unemployment unless you set yourself up to not do that. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the time, you'll face that hard time and decide to make a decision that's gonna negatively impact yourself or people around you.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to do that. You don't have to all the time. You know, no
Right.
judgment if you do choose to. I still think it's BS regardless. But
But altogether, I believe that the solution for a lot of day-to-day Black people, which is the reason why I say sometimes I'm capitalism neutral, is I would rather learn how to pimp the system than how the system pimp me. Right. And it's like, once again, I can teach you about economics through capitalism quicker than I can teach you about economics overall. Right. Because the main thing that I say to my Black folks who, whether they be anti-capitalist, pro-Black liberation, economics is simply the way that it is that you keep a house. Capitalism is an economic system. You can learn how to move through this economic system without inherently believing that capitalism as a system is a system that should continue to exist. Because if you ask me as an individual, I'm going to be straight up with you. The day that capitalism falls, right? I still believe that the way in which I've learned how to gather resources within capitalism will help me move through any other system of economics that will come after capitalism. Why? Because I'm not pimping capitalism, I'm pimping the system. And if I understand the systematics of said system, that means that I can thrive in any other system that I'm placed in. Why? Because I didn't learn capitalism. I learned the system of
the
economics.
system, and I think that's fair and valid. And like you said, like you said, if we were on YouTube, I would get chewed up because I'm anti-capitalist, but I know the system. We live in capitalism is all around us and everything that we do in our entire world. You wake up in the morning, you turn your phone on, that's capitalism. You go brush your teeth, that's capitalism. You bought that toothbrush at a store. You go downstairs, you eat your breakfast, it's capitalism. You bought those groceries at a grocery store. You go on the bus, depending on what city you're in, it might be capitalism, it might not be. Boston's testing out free bus lines or whatever. But you get in your car, that's capitalism. You put gas in your car, that's capitalism. Like, we live in a capitalist society, so why wouldn't I, as someone who is surrounded by this, try to figure out the best way to move forward through this?
Mhm.
The changing factor is that I realize I know what I've had to sacrifice to even get to this point. I know that I've also had to sacrifice on top of being supremely blessed with the opportunities that I've had. Like, to make what I've made at my age and to have gone to school and to have grown up in a household with two parents and to have a safety net, to have siblings. I have a sister that's graduating med school. Congratulations, Chi Chi. Shout out to you. Congratulations on matching. We love having a doctor in the family. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
But and congratulations to my other sister too. She also graduated. She also graduated to get her master's in project management. So shout out to her too. But just because we've had the opportunity, I have a safety net. If things get really bad, I got a sister who's about to be a doctor. If things get really bad, both my parents are still alive. The problem is there's so many people in this system that it's not as forgiving. Some people don't have their parents, or they don't have siblings they can lean on, or not even that they don't have, they're taken care of. I'm taking care of a parent that is bedridden. I'm taking care of a sibling that is recovering from addiction, or has a is neurodivergent, or any other number of things. Like, I can't even imagine. So the reason why I know how to work capitalism is because I need to survive. But the fact that I'm surviving is why I'm doing the work I'm doing, so that I can help dismantle this system that is so quick to throw and toss aside people that look like me and you.
And brother BJ, in closing, I would like for you to tell the people once again where they can find you, how they can keep up with you, and once again how it is that they can contribute to the work that you do if you have any information on that.
Yeah, so you can find me. All my socials are at BJ Oswagu, TikTok, Instagram, uh, Twitter is at BJ Oswagu as well. You follow me there. Keep on the lookout as I step into this new role. I'm going to be looking, if you're in the Massachusetts area, the Boston area, we'll be looking for volunteers. I will be hiring a staff. So if you're looking for a position, potentially, people that are really interested in community health work, people that are interested in food insecurity, if you want to help feed people that don't have the financial access to feed themselves, please follow me, keep up to date with me. I'll be posting updates. LinkedIn is also it's Chukwuemeka BJ Oswagu on LinkedIn. All of my pictures, there are pictures of me everywhere. So do that. I'm a power lifter. If you want to follow, I work out every day. So if you want to follow my workout page, like I post on the same pages. So my workout stuff's on there too. But if you want to see some of that, let me know. Or if you ever just want to have a conversation, reach out.
Most definitely, most definitely. And y'all already know where to find me, man, because y'all found me here. So once again, good people, great people, guys, people. Brother BJ, I appreciate you for joining me on this podcast this evening. And for the rest of y'all, man, peace, love, soul, and butter rolls. We are.